Hey there, welcome to Mark in the Park, the podcast. I'm your host, Mark Milow, speaker, storyteller, and healthcare advocate. And this is the place for personal reflections, stories about mindset, hobbies, and purpose. And a reminder that life doesn't stop at a diagnosis. In fact, often the real journey begins after. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Buddy, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Mark in the Park podcast. And today I have a friend of mine on, and we're going to have a great discussion today. I consider Amy Chrest a friend of mine. She's also a social media influencer and an all-around badass and an amazing wife to her husband. Amy, you know I love you and your husband, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, Mark, thank you so much, and we love you right back. You're just a solid dude.
Well, thank you. I am a solid guy, that's for sure. So
You're funny and you're loving and you're inclusive and all those good things. So yeah, I was stoked to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you so much. And you know, Amy, we've spent a little time together in Washington, D.C., and then also at the WPC here in Phoenix, and gotten to know each other. Of course, we've known each other on social media for a little while, but got to meet in person. And I got to say, when I first started watching you on social media, you were a little different than everybody else. You're shaking that groove thing. You were bebopping around. Yeah, exactly. And you were unabashedly you, and that's what I love about you. And you're unique, but you're genuine. You're authentic, and you are a joyful person, which I absolutely love. But today's topic is going to I'm going to flip this a little bit. Today's topic is depression. And it's interesting because sometimes the people around us that sometimes seem even the happiest may be some of the people that struggle with depression the most.
Yes.
And you and I have talked about this. We've both struggled with depression. On social media, it's funny because you know, I don't have a lot of visible symptoms of Parkinson's. I've even had comments like, well, if you only shook like so-and-so, you'd be so much of a better advocate, you know, kind of thing, right? And I think to myself, people don't understand the depth of Parkinson's, that what it does to you in so many other ways than just a shaking leg or hand. And for me, depression, and I say this all the time, depression and apathy and anxiety attacks, but especially the depression, is the thing that bothers me the most about Parkinson's. And you can't put that on a meter. It's not obvious. And so sometimes people think I'm doing just fine when I'm not. And so, Amy, I know you said you've struggled with depression yourself, and do you want to just kind of clue us in a little bit about your tenure with depression?
I would love to. First of all, thank you, Mark, for the kind words that you said at the beginning. I am a joyful person to my core. I came to the earth this way, and I am authentic because if I'm not going to be, then why am I doing this to begin with, right? And as my younger son said, sharing stories builds community. And that's why I came on social media, because I want to break the stigma of depression and anxiety, mental illnesses, mental health, and I want to break the stigma of Parkinson's. My depression, and Mark, I think you hit the nail on the head. If you're a person that is jovial and joyful and, you know, playful, that can mask depression, and people see on the outside but not on the inside. And what I think about, as a speech language pathologist, we use this analogy for a lot of things, and we can use it for Parkinson's. It's the iceberg analogy. So with Parkinson's, you know, you have an iceberg above the water line. You can see tremor, you can see rigidity, you can see postural instability and bradykinesia. What you can't see are all those non-motor, like depression, apathy, insomnia, orthostatic hypotension, you know, on that we could go, constipation. And then if you further take that depression, you can break that down too. And what you might not be seeing in someone like you, who's, you know, like I am, a playful, kind of joyful, like to joke, like to have fun person, what you're not seeing is the deep pain that we can be experiencing with depression. And I have said that I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. I think you can be a joyful person and have depression.
Yes.
Um, and I guess my depression, and right now I'm in that mode where I'm at a severe level of depression, and you would not know it necessarily sitting here listening to me and talking. Um, I've started counseling again, which is a great thing. And I do take two different medications for it. At first, I was on one, and as the longer I've been on medication and as my depression has increased, in part because of what we know the dopaminergic changes are with Parkinson's, loss of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, those feel good neural transmissions are not working great, but also because I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's a part of it, it's a family. There's probably a genetic predisposition, or it runs in my family. Um, so I say that depression can go into remission for me, but it's always going to be a disease that I will have to live with. And when it is severe like it is now, I really have to consider those external things that I can do, like eating right. We've talked about trying to get sleep, hydrate, exercise, all those things. But it can get dark, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Thank you.
important that we keep talking about it. It's important that we break the stigma. But if you are in a situation where you're experiencing depression, whether it be mild, moderate, severe, don't keep it in.
Yeah. Amy, thank you so much for peeling back those onion layers and sharing,
Yeah.
because I believe in what you just said, that we have to keep an eye on it. We have to keep visibility to it. And there is a stigma. I know I, for the longest time, didn't want to talk about my depression online because of that stigma, just flat out. I just didn't want to. I knew that I felt like people would think less of me if I talked about being crippled by depression, and that's literally what it has done at times. Has crippled me. It's kept me holed up. It's kept me isolated. If it got real bad, and I've shared this in the past, but I actually have called the suicide hotline before because the depression got so bad, right? And it's taken friends around me, my good friend Nikki from online, also Melissa Livingston, people know her as Miss Liv online, talking about it, and number one, being friends of mine and encouraging me, but also encouraging me to keep it out in the forefront. And that's how we battle these things. That's how we fight them, is by keeping them out there and talking about what we can do about it. So again,
And
thank you for your.
I'm sorry, Mark. I've got another aspect for me. I'm a mom with two amazing, cerebral, kind, responsible, empathic young men, 23, 26. It can be a hard time in the world for that age group. And if you're a young man that feels deeply, and both of my kids have struggled, and I share this with their permission, because they, my youngest son is sharing story builds community, but both with anxiety, one in particular, my oldest, with crippling depression. And I'm a mom. I do not want my kids living in a society where they feel ashamed because of a disease, which is what depression is, where they didn't ask for it. I want them to be able to say, go to a doctor and say, I've got depression, or talk to a friend and say, I struggle with depression. Today's not a great day, without having to isolate and feel shame. So that is
Yes.
my, even above myself, this mama bear gets, I just want my kids to live in a better place where they don't have to feel ashamed about
Right.
depression or addiction or any of the other things that I advocate for. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and to that point, I was going to bring up the whole point of support.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a depressive episode, you have a very loving family. What's it like at home? I mean, if those two boys, and I say boys, they're mid-20s, but
They're
when
boys.
those two boys see Mama Bear depressed,
Yeah.
how do they respond? How does your husband respond?
Well, my sons are have always been so in tune to my facial expressions. And unfortunately, Mark, as we know, with Parkinson's, we can develop a masking.
Yes.
So sometimes my boys will, like, they can look at me in the first second and know something if mom's, and it's not like they're always looking if I'm depressed, but it's just what you do with your mom, your loved one. And sometimes they can misinterpret the masking as depression. And we're very honest. I go, no, I'm okay. It's just my resting Parkinson's face.
Yes, RPF. Yes.
All right, yes. But when I am legit in depression, David can tell instantly, and we just talk about, tomorrow's another day, but today let's just do it, do what we can with it. He'll give me my space. There's no talking my way out of it. Um, yeah, I know now that it's not linear forever. Like, it's not going to be the same every single day. I know my pattern will be that I can have really, really depressed days, dependent on, like I said, the what's going on at work, perhaps, or um, just anything that contributes to depression. But they give me space, but they always check in first, and they don't try and talk me out of it. It's kind of a, I got you, we love you, do what you need to take, and let me know if you need anything.
That
Yeah.
aspect is so important. They're not trying to talk you out of it. The let you go through it kind of thing. Because yeah, it doesn't help when you say snap out of it. You hear that, it doesn't do anybody any good. It really doesn't. So
And Mark, I was thinking as I was listening to you talk initially, when you said you didn't want to share with people, you didn't want the stigma. I bet you, like me, another reason is you don't want to burden anyone with it. Because once you disclose you have depression, but you're a person that maybe doesn't look like depression, you're not Eeyore, like, oh, woe is me, then you feel like, I don't want people to be burdened and always wonder, is Amy okay? Is Amy okay? You know?
yeah, that's a really good point too. And but part of it is, as well as, I don't want people to know how frequently I struggle with it. Because if people knew, they might be like, dang. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because and it's not every day, but it can come in what I call waves, where it could be like a number of days in a row that I struggle with it. Um, but here's another thing. We talk about depression with Parkinson's, low dopamine, but I'm going to talk about something else here. I'm a man who just reached 60. Hormones can
Mm,
play a big part in depression. And it took me a long time to figure that out. When I was reading the side by side lists of effects of low testosterone with low dopamine, and where those things crossed over, mind fog, energy levels, inability to to grasp words. There's just so many things that crossed over, and I was like, I you know I have to go through hormone therapy to rule that out, to make sure I know what Parkinson's is, right? And
mm-hmm.
so it took me a long time to get on a regular regimen of testosterone. That in and of itself has helped my depression, when some of my depression was linked to low hormones, right? So
That's
there's a lot of different things
interesting.
that, and I just bring that up because um, that was a huge find in my life. And now I go through a cycle, because I self-inject every couple of weeks. And when it's starting time, if I'm past due, people close to me will know. It's like, have you taken your shot?
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. So
Because
there's something else.
does it rear, does your depression, is it elevated? Is that how, if you're not taking your shots, does it come out in elevated depression or maybe just other
It's
symptoms?
really just like a little tweak in my thinking. I go from all the positivity to less positive to
Hmm.
I'm starting to sound a little bit like Eeyore, right?
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
funny because it's not a full depression, but my body is reacting to that, and yeah, it can be influenced by that. So
So that is your menopause, right?
yeah, exactly, my menopause.
Menopause.
Thank
Menopause.
you. Right?
Menopause. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. I didn't know that there were testosterone shots that supplements. I mean, it makes total sense because women take estrogen
right.
supplements, but I didn't know that.
Yes,
You've
I
taught.
actually did a post on social media. I actually showed myself injecting myself maybe a year or so ago.
Okay.
But again, that took some bravery too, because who wants to say, yes, I'm low in testosterone, right? But I will
Yeah.
guarantee you, just about every man who's reached 60 has a number of men have struggled with that. So just to throw that out there as a wild card to depression, but because I know some women who have been low in estrogen or actually low in estrogen and testosterone, and they've had to
Oh,
take
yeah.
hormone therapy, right? So yeah.
I have heard that too. Well, that's valuable information, Mark. Thanks for sharing that one. Yeah.
So when you have, well, okay, let me back up. You have
Hmm.
struggled with depression enough that you probably have some go-tos. Am
Hmm.
I correct? Or do you have a toolbox that you go to? How do you help yourself through these times? Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. So, I will have to say, I had therapy, and then because of change in my level of employment, I went from full time to as needed PRN because Parkinson's was making it so hard for me to keep up with the demand at that time. And so I lost my great insurance. So I went on David's insurance, but it was wah wah. So I just stopped therapy for a while. And now I've got back on therapy. So that's one thing. And I know that not everyone can, like, I just went through the experience. I just said I didn't have access to great therapy because of insurance was bad. So I know everyone can't afford therapy or maybe tap into it. If you can, that's a great thing to do. I also need medication. Um, and I started taking medication because of the anxiety, but it also was help with the anxiety and the depression. And immediately my brain felt better and was better. So I know that I was very low on serotonin. Um, so the medication, and then the other thing, sometimes the severity of the depression sneaks up, and I'm well into it before I conceptualize, oh, this is why I feel so irritable. This is why I feel so like worthless and hopeless at this time. It's because of the depression. And then once I
Right.
realized, oh, it's that liar called depression with its evil lying friend anxiety, um, then that's when I have to be intentional with, okay, get up off the couch, make your body move, even if it's once around the block, drink water and rest, right? And
Exactly.
I call depression that evil lying depression with its evil twin anxiety because depression does lie to us. Depression tells us that we are worthless, we are hopeless. We maybe, if you get as extreme that you and I have both been with suicidal ideation and then suicidal attempts, that's when our brain is saying the world would be better without us. Um, and all the things that get us to that point. And as a
Yes. Yes.
caveat, if people listening, it is a myth that if you talk to someone about suicide, that they're going to commit suicide. That's wrong. You talk to someone about suicide and say, how are you feeling? They're not going to then make the action. Some people are afraid to talk to someone who they think that they're really depressed. I'm going to make it worse. No, that's why they have a 988 hotline so that you can call and people can talk to you. So, um, talk to people if you're concerned that they are at that point.
Amy, that is such a great point. That is actually going to be today's edition of Mark My Words,
Mm,
where I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a second.
yeah,
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because I was just about to ask you, is there a common misconception that you'd like to correct about depression and whatnot? And I think you've just touched on that. Um, from my standpoint, not only have I been depressed and even suicidal, but I've been around those that have been the same. And
same.
what I have found is talking with them, or just being present, putting your arm around them, even if they can't talk, but sitting next to somebody physically, sitting next to them, putting my arm around them. And if the miles are there, you can't do that. Being on the phone with them means a whole heck of a lot to somebody that's going through that. And I know that I needed somebody to talk to. And again, I've shared this before, but I did call the suicide hotline myself, which is what led to my little suicide prevention semicolon tattoo in 2023. I needed somebody to talk to. There was no one that understood me, and I felt like I couldn't really talk to anybody at that point because of the circumstance I was in. And they were fantastic. I just wanted to say, um, the warmth of the person on the other end. I told her I poured out my heart. And her response was, "You're grieving so much right now between the loss of your health with Parkinson's, the loss of this, the loss of that." She said, "I'm going to get you resources. You need to see a therapist." And she got me the resources. And then she said, "I'm going to follow up with you. Are you okay with that?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And to her word, she followed up with a phone call the very next day. She followed up with a phone call 4 days later. She followed up with a phone call a week later.
Wow.
And the therapist that she gave me, I actually went to two different therapists. Actually, one was a grief therapist and one was a regular therapist. And I went to all the sessions I had with them that really, really helped change my life.
Hmm.
And so that call to the suicide hotline changed my life in many ways. So I really appreciate, Amy, the encouragement there. And if you may not have to, if you're listening out there, you may not have to call the suicide hotline, but yes, talk to a friend. And if you're on the receiving end, don't be afraid to talk to somebody about what they're going through and listen to them and just love on them. Love does a whole hell of a lot of good. Excuse my language, but it does.
Yeah.
And loving on them, hugging them, and telling them that you're there for them does a lot of good, because it did me a lot of good. So
Yeah.
that's
And
today's edition of Mark My Words.
yes, Mark, I agree. And have that open conversation with your loved one.
Yes.
So if it's your loved one or a friend who you know is suicidal, maybe has had an attempt, you check in and you say something, you just say, "I just want to check in. Are you safe now? Are you okay?" And that person will appreciate that so much. And sometimes that's all they need. That's all they need to kind of redirect that thought process. And Mark, you and I are both verbal, we're kind of verbal processors, and we talk. Not everybody is like us. So don't think if you call 988, you're going to have to do a lot of talking. And Mark, you could probably say, maybe talk a little bit about that. But if don't be afraid to think, "Oh, I'm going to have to like divulge all this stuff about myself, and what are they going to think?" You can just call and say, I'm scared. I'm in a dark place right now."
Yes. That's a really good point too. Yes, I have no problems talking, as many people know. I'm a storyteller, and when I have somebody on the phone like that, yes, I was able to share what was on my heart. But to your point, that wasn't necessary for the moment. It was, what are you going through? How can I help you? Kind of stuff. And I'm going to get you resources. This doctor is available in your area tomorrow morning. Here's the number, right? It was suggestions. It was help. It was offers. So it wasn't just me like having to talk so they understood. The bottom line was I was calling the number. They know what that means. You call that number, they know what it means. And this person needs help, right? And they gave resources freely, and again was just very compassionate, very understanding. But I did not have to give my life's details. to your point, Amy, I kind of do, you know what I mean? But
I
not
do
everybody
too.
has that. So, yeah, exactly.
Not
So
everybody's like that. That's great,
yeah,
Mark. Thank you. Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. So when you talk about your family, do they ever take it personally, or did they in the past? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Um, I can't say if my boys, if when they were little, if they could have misinterpreted my depression maybe as something they've done, or maybe I wasn't happy with them if I had a certain facial expression, or if I was not as, they know me as the fun exercise mom and joking and stuff. And when I wasn't doing that, they immediately picked up on it. They could have personalized that. And I will tell you the reason I think that is because I did when I was a child. If my mom was in a depressive cycle, I remember being little and looking at her and saying, "Are you mad at me?" Um, if you're kind of an empath and you kind of used to thinking like, "Oh, did I do something?" Which probably is, a person with depression anyway, even when I was little. So I know that I kind of felt that maybe I had done something. So it could be very much that my kids did. With David, when he now not now as adult kids now though, they just, they're old enough to intellectualize it and conceptualize. David will come in and he looks at me, and within 3 seconds, if I don't look like the more happy Amy, he's like, "Are you okay? What's wrong? What happened?"
Yeah.
God bless him. And I can just be having like maybe a low level depression and say, "No, I'm good," because we say depression is like umbrella, but there is different. Uh, well, you've probably done this too, Mark, but like, um, I told you that I had a recent neuropsychological evaluation, and part of that was a rubric kind of checklist. And mine did rate as severe. I wasn't shocked because I'm the one living it. So empirically, quantitatively, I can say severe. There's moderate, mild, but nonetheless, depression is depression. So that's a long answer to say yes. My family is very in tuned with me, and I would say 99% of the time they don't think it's them. But of course, because they're loving, they will check in and say, "Is it, did I do something? Is it
Yeah.
something I could do different?"
Sure. It's funny you say that, because yes, I had a cognitive evaluation, part of which is also where they do test the depression, and they go into the level of suicide risk.
Mm-hmm.
And my test was so skewed on suicidal ideations and whatnot that as soon as the neuropsychologist that gave me the results, he said, I am not giving you an option. I'm making you go back to your neurologist, and you need to follow up on this. Um, and so the results was given. Excuse me, the results were given by two neuropsychologists, and they both agreed, these are some of the highest we've ever seen, and we really need you to follow up on this.
For
And
depression.
for depression, and
Yeah,
depression and
yeah,
suicide, right? And
yeah,
um, I was like, wow, that's a list, that's a record I don't want to set, right? And okay, being a little tongue in cheek, but it's true. Um, so I went back to my neurologist at their insistence, who actually got me into it was a what they called an experimental therapy session at Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center. They were trying a different form of therapy and got me to a therapy group, which was fantastic. And I made a couple really good friends in that group, which the therapy was done and over with. But some of those friends, I continue to get texts with, "How you doing, Mark? You doing okay? What's happening today?" That kind of stuff.
yeah,
So that therapy session went beyond the therapies, the total therapy sessions, into friendships, and those
yeah.
friendships abide. So there you go. So
So, Mark, this is interesting because we're both young onset Parkinson's disease. We know that there are research differences between onset under 50 and then Parkinson's after 50. One of them being that we're in the workforce longer, right? And I wanted to this is so interesting because with my neurocognitive evaluation, the results, because my depression was on the severe side, he said that the depression is not causative of your mild neurocognitive impairment. So it's not the cause, but it can be making it look worse than it is. So the depression can definitely impact your ability to access your executive functions, your retrieval of memory. And so his recommendation was for me to possibly go to a psychiatrist, because I've never been to a psychiatrist, Mark. I've gotten my medication prescriptions through my general practitioner and my MDS neurologist. So he said, I think it's fair for you to go to a psychiatrist. Just have them check your meds. You might need to change your meds because I've been on one since 2018 and one since 2024. So I found that very interesting that both you and I, as people with young onset, have gotten these mild impairments, moderate, with the cognitive, mild to moderate, but then the severe depression we both have. And both of the neuropsychologists said, go get this checked out. Who knows? Maybe our cognitive pieces won't look as bad as they are if we can get the depression kind of stabilized. But yeah, I guess my point is it's a thing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it's a very big thing. So
Yeah.
speaking of which, I'm going to tell a little story here. I was at my neurologist, my MDS, and for those who don't know, an MDS is a movement disorder specialist, a neurologist with training in movement disorders. And she asked about how the depression was doing, and I said, well, I take this medication. Is there any way we could maybe up it a step? It was at the very base level. And she goes, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's try it. Let's take you up to, it was 1 pill a day. Let's take you up to 2 pills a day, right? And I did. And about 3-4 weeks later, I hit a depressive episode that was so horrible. It was I was over the weekend was chatting with a friend of mine, and my responses were making her fear for me. And now she's a friend of mine. She's a mindset coach that I know, and who happens to know about psychology, and she's a psychologist, but not a psychiatrist, but she knows about drugs that help for depression. And she said, I have to ask you, have you had any changes in medication? I said, well, yeah, actually my antidepressant, we bumped it up a level. But she said, when? And I told her, about whatever many weeks ago. She goes, do me a favor, go back to your original dose and tell your doctor, call your doctor, because this was later in the day. So you should call your doctor tomorrow, tell them that you've gone back to your original dose and explain what happened and see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I followed that advice, and it worked.
Yeah.
And I Googled my medication, and I said, asked AI, can this drug make me depressed or suicidal? And the response was, absolutely. Antidepressants can make you suicidal or depressed. And I'm like, that's so counterintuitive, right? But it was true. And so I listened to this friend of mine. I went back, and sure enough, called my doctor and said, look, this was horrible. And the response was, that was sound advice. We are going to keep you at that original level now, and we'll talk further, right? So I say that to say, sometimes the antidepressants themselves can be a problem. And to your advice about getting your meds checked, that's great advice, because you might be being affected by your medication in a way you don't even expect. Because I
Hmm.
didn't expect my antidepressant to make me depressed and suicidal, but I will tell you that was 24 hours of my life that I almost it was through the roof. It was
Yeah.
just the most insane experience.
And
So
it's
that
so
just kind of
painful,
tells. Yes,
right? It's
yeah,
so, God, nobody wants it. The other thing, Mark, that the psychiatrist said is there are tests now, that blood tests that you can take, and they can determine what actual antidepressant medication that your specific makeup could tolerate more. It tends to be familial. So like the medications that I'm on, both my boys, that they could be on very similar medications, and we know that they probably are going to do okay with that, which has been the case with us. So just know that there are things out there now that are developed, like these blood tests, where it doesn't always have to be kind of a shot in the dark. Let's try this one and see if this one works, kind of thing.
sure.
Yeah.
Question for you:
Yeah.
have you set some boundaries or parameters in your life to protect your mental health?
What a great question. The answer is much better the older I get. The more I see patterns of is what can trigger, what can kind of start to make my stable depression go down. So yeah, I am more successful at that. One is like, if you have someone in your life who can be demanding of your time and attention and make you feel guilty, perhaps because you're not able to give that time and attention, but they know that you struggle, that's I gotta maybe not cut you out all the way, but that's a boundary set. You
Sure.
know, Homegirl
You,
only has so much that she can give. And I'm going to give first to my kids and my husband. And I give a lot to my job. But I'm giving more to myself now, Mark, in terms of being able to say, I just can't do that. That big word, no. No is a sentence, people.
I
No,
love that.
no is a sentence. And so if if you don't say it, you will be taken advantage of. If you're that kind of person that says yes to
Sure.
everything,
That
right?
needs to be on a t-shirt. No is a sentence. I love
I'm
that.
sure it is somewhere, Mark.
I would wear that shirt heartily. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about you?
Now,
Do you have stuff that you
oh,
kind of
absolutely.
boundaries?
I self-care is not anything that I gravitated towards. I saw self-care as something that weak people do, and I'm just being honest. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm a let's get up, let's get out there, let's do this.
Me
Something
too.
goes
Yeah.
wrong, you take care of it. You rub you rub the dirt on it, and you just keep going, right?
Yep. That's
Um,
our generation, Mark. Yeah.
exactly. And so I really struggled with self-care, and I've in the last 2 years realized how important that is. And one of the things I've learned is boundaries. There are some people, as an example, kind of dovetailing off of what you just talked about, that I keep at arm's length. There are some people that actually um, their persona is one way, but interacting personally is a different way, and
Sure.
it's very negative. And so it's like I don't want to say I put up walls, but like you said, I keep it at arm's length. That's your boundary right there. Stay right there, no
Mm-hmm.
closer, right? And of course, I don't say that, but that's what I have to do. And
Well,
there
that's
are some
called protecting your peace, right? You're
exactly
trying to protect your peace, and
right.
that is your right. That is our right to do that.
In the opposite, see that I say that in the negative way. In the positive way, I'm also gathering around me people that support me, keeping a tribe around me of people that believe in me, that love me, that care for me, and that want the best for me. Those are the people I'm building around me, and that's another way. So there's the negative way of saying I'm going to keep this person at arm's length. There's the positive way of saying I'm going to bring that tribe to me. And Melissa, Miss Emily has a saying, the universe will bring you your people. And I love that, because I think that's really what's happening in my life is as I'm going through a lot of changes, my people are coming. And it's like, this is really cool, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah,
Total
that's
sense.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What is it saying? You put out what you give, and you're putting out love,
yeah,
right? You were talking
definitely
before,
trying to.
love.
Yeah,
Love is what heals all. I'm kind of a hippie chick, so,
I was
you
just going to
know,
say "Love Is All You Need" by the Beatles, right? Love is
hey,
all you need. So there you go.
that's it. Yep, exactly.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I think we both are along the same vein, but how do you use humor to get through this
Mhm.
subject, depression or down feelings, or do you use humor? And I know the answer to that, but anyways, let me know how you use humor to get through these things.
So, like I said before, I am just wired at joy for my core, at my core. And along with that comes a playful spirit. Um, I love to have fun. I love to laugh. And again, I don't think those characteristics are mutually exclusive from also having a disease called depression. You can have all of it at once. Um, I I find that just because I am joyful, I laugh a lot, I maybe seek it out, seek out um people that are funny and joyful. And it just kind of, I don't know, joking just kind of naturally kind of comes to me, like puns we talked about,
Yeah.
um, and just kind of seeing. Sometimes I was on another podcast and I was talking about something that wasn't necessarily funny, but I switched it and I saw a funny side of the situation. And that's kind of how my brain works. I see both the negative of what I feel that's dark, but then once I get out of the real dark and I can see there's a humor side to it too, sure, I want to gravitate to the fun side to help me get the hell out of the real dark side, you know. Um, you know what I do
Yeah.
sometimes though, Mark? I love music.
Mm,
I love music and I
yes.
love to move and dance. But I
Yes, you
have,
do.
yes, but because I love music so much, I feel music at a very visceral level. The lyrics, like when I listen to when I see live music, I get all the instruments. It's just one of my sons is a gifted guitarist, musician. So I have to be very careful because when I am very depressed, I often cannot listen to music because it is triggering for my depression. And I'm so afraid that I will encode a certain song with that moment of depression. And then for the rest of my life, I'll never be able to hear that song because it will trigger depression. Right. So I know that about me. So where I use humor to help, I have to be careful to know what also can trigger. And it's a evil dichotomy that as much as I love music, it can also, because I'm so viscerally affected by it, I have to be careful when I'm really depressed not to put music on.
Okay, you
Yeah.
get 4 bonus points for using the word dichotomy, and that's that, that's so interesting. You say that too, because um, I know that you love music. Your social media will show that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I love that. I am not
It's that
that
dopamine
inclined.
binder.
It's a exactly. It's a dopamine rush, right?
Yeah.
But music does help me sometimes.
Mm.
And oddly enough, blues music. I love the blues, and
Mhm.
for whatever reason, blues music helps me.
Oh,
There's a song by BB King. The song is "Nobody Loves Me But My Mama, and She Might Be Jiving Too." I'm okay. So I'm like, if you're that blue, come on, man. I may not be that bad, right? But no, I just love it because yeah, music is one of those things, right? But for me, I tend to joke about things in my head, and jokes pop up in my normal atmosphere. They pop up when the jokes stop. That's when people listen. That's when people go, something's wrong, right? Or even you might know Joe Tosh on social media. She's Lady Duff Gordon in the UK. She's got a British accent, right? And I got a direct message from her that said, and I'll say this in her British accent: Mark, uh, you've been conspicuous in your absence. I wasn't online much, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I love that. Joe is so sweethearted, right? And I love that, right? But when my jokes stop, that's when people around me know that then Mark's really, really struggling, because
Mm-hmm.
I do depend on bad dad jokes and puns and things like that to get it through. Which reminds me, I wanted to share this with you if you don't mind. Um, um,
Are we going to get a dad joke?
well, I was just going to say, you never want to challenge death to a pillow fight unless you're ready for the repercussions. There you go. Yes, there you go. All right.
You can
Anyways,
call me up and tell me dad jokes anytime because I love them and I'm a low bar, so I'm going to laugh at everyone.
I've got a low bar, so Mark, you're right in there. That's good. I love that. Okay, so we have gone 46 minutes, and this is the part of the show where we're going to start wrapping up. This is the part of the show I call "Get to the Chopper."
Get to the chopper!
This is where we're going to the hillsides. The helicopters are coming to extract us, and this is your chance before the ending credits roll to say, what's the one thing you want people to take away from today's episode? What's the one thing you want them to think about when they think about this? What is that one thought?
My one thought is we have got to break the stigma around mental health, mental illness. It is nothing to be ashamed of. It's not a weakness. And please reach out and get help if you need it, because stories build community and that's how we help each other, right? No
Absolutely.
shame. No
No
shame.
shame. Thank you so much. And mine is similar to that. Just to say, as somebody that's called the suicide hotline, if you need it, call it. Don't be afraid. They're there to help, and they're listening ears, and they're guiding angels, so to speak, and they're there to offer assistance and help. So don't be afraid. And as Amy just said, reach out and get help, and let's break this stigma, because Amy, you are one of the most wonderful people that I know. I would never think less of you for being depressed or anything else, right? And we just need to get through the stigma. And so, Amy, again, I count you and your husband as friends. Yeah, I tag along with you guys at WPC. I felt like a third wheel sometimes, because I just felt like I have to hang on to these people, because you guys are so fun and so funny and
Well,
so
we just love
amazing.
you
So,
so much, Mark. Yeah,
well,
you're a great guy, and I think you having this topic today is going to help a lot of people. I'm proud of you for doing this. It's something that we need to do more of. So thank you.
thank you so much, Amy, for being on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
And to all my listeners out there, guys, as always, I just want to remind you, life is not a destination. Life is a journey. So get out there and keep exploring. Thanks, guys, so much for listening. Subscribe, like, and tell people about the podcast, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Mark in the Park, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps more people discover the show. For show notes, updates, and future episodes, or to connect, head over to markinthepark21.com. Got a guest idea or a topic suggestion? Drop me a line at markintheparkpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And to all my listeners, this is Mark Milow reminding you, life is as much about the journey as the destination. So enjoy the sights and sounds along the way. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep exploring.